Welcome to the 1-hour Traffic Incident Management Responder Refresher. I'm Pat Rooney with the Maryland Department of Transportation Chart Operations. Because of the safety precautions put in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this class, originally meant to be done in person, had to be done in a web-based format. As such, I have to thank Eileen Singleton and the Baltimore Metropolitan Council for their assistance in helping put this presentation together. We only have an hour and quite a bit of information to cover, so let's begin.
So we're going to cover what our biggest mistakes are at incident scenes. No matter how much we practice, no matter how much we go over things, we still find ourselves making the same kind of little silly mistakes out on the instance. And as we know, they can be very dangerous for our folks. I want to show you a video here. I just want you to take a look at the vehicle that's just coming into view now, coming up in this closed lane, and see if you can identify the make and model of that vehicle. For those of you that took a good look at it and could identify it, that's a Tesla. And unfortunately, in this incident, 2 years ago, we ended up there was a traffic accident out in Columbus, Ohio, on an interstate. A truck very similar to our chart trucks was blocking lane 1, had all those cones up and everything. The Tesla, which was obviously in automatic drive mode, came up in that lane, ran over the cones, struck the back of the truck at about 70 miles an hour. So the autonomous vehicles, even though they have a lot of promise, they're not quite there yet. They're supposed to identify things like that, and obviously this one didn't. But that's one of those things that we have to be prepared for out there on incidents, just keeping an eye out for vehicles like that. Okay, this refresher is not a substitute for the 4-hour course. Okay, at the conclusion, should be able to recognize the dangers encountered by responders when working near traffic. We all kind of have an idea what those are. And we want to define the key elements of a traffic incident management area, otherwise known as a TIMA. The term's getting used more and more, so we're trying to get everybody used to kind of referring to that area as being a TIMA. Explain the importance of the scene safety and what measures and what tactics we should be using when we're out there on traffic incidents. And we all want to recognize the consequences of not adhering to those standards. One of my favorite pictures is from back in 1960, and out on the LA freeway, and you see the crash in the middle of the road, and you see all the police cars and fire engines and the medic units and all. And here we think, well, 1960, how far have we come? And we still see scenes like this. We, on a daily basis, we'll see a scene that people aren't thinking about what they're doing when they're arriving on it. They're not securing the scene properly. You see the one guy in lane 1 walking away from us towards the back of that tow truck. And that's one of the things that we have to get away from. You don't want to turn your back to traffic under any kind of situation. You will always want to see what it is coming up behind you, alongside of you, anywhere. If you're not in a totally safe zone, you want to know where any of that traffic is around you. What the TIM responder training course came from, and it was developed for emergency responders by emergency responders from all of the disciplines, from law enforcement, from fire, from EMS, from the tow companies, from the highways. And it was all put together, and it took quite a few years for it to do. And it's been around now for just about 8 years, and the training has, and that's what we are trying to do, is get everybody not to get stagnant. Keep refreshing, keep thinking about things, because the primary things that we're worried about is responder safety. We want to know what safe, quick clearance is, because until we get that, until we can get out of that roadway, get away from that scene, get someplace safe, we're starting to create a lot of situations where secondary crashes are becoming a real problem for us, and we really have to take care of reducing the number of them. And we want prompt, reliable, interoperable communications. Because if we're all talking the same language and we're all talking about the incident the same way, It saves time. We don't have to repeat things as often. We don't have to translate it. Luckily, with the new communication systems coming out, we are able to talk to each other in a lot of areas. So it really helps, and it's going to end up making things a lot safer for us. Some of the general safety considerations that we just want to talk about real quick, as a reminder, we always want to wear seatbelts. Even if you're sitting still, just blocking traffic, keep the seatbelt on. And we find out that if a vehicle is struck while it's sitting stationary, the seatbelt keeps the passengers inside from getting jousted around too much. And never trust the approaching traffic in either direction. You never turn your back on the approaching traffic, just like I showed you in that picture. In those few seconds, that means just a split-second difference between you hearing and being able to react to something coming up behind you. It can save your life. Maintain an awareness of where you are, where you can go, that all-important escape route if something does happen, and where you can't go. We've had several instances where emergency responders have tried to get out of the way of vehicles skidding towards them on icy or wet roads, and they end up jumping over what they think is a Jersey wall or a guardrail, and it turns out to be a bridge where they end up falling 30 feet. Never stand between the vehicles, bad place to be. We're constantly reminding our guys when they're out with disabled vehicles, don't stand between your truck and the disabled vehicle. Get off to the side. If somebody strikes the rear of the vehicle, it's going right into you. And you also want to tell the civilians where to stay. Have them get out of the way. Have them go over a guardrail just to be away from the vehicle should any of them be struck. The National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 1091 standard, actually has, they've taken a look at it. They've put traffic incident management into their professional qualifications. They're really emphasizing a lot of it. And the resource is not just for fire. I mean, one of the more unusual things coming out of the NFPA, it actually was developed as a resource for all disciplines going out on traffic incidents. So, if you get a chance, you might want to take a look at that if you haven't already done so. The new version of it is coming out, or it has just come out over the last couple months. So and make sure you read it and get familiar with it. The reasons why we need this training, why we need a refresher. The justification for retraining, we're complacent. Why are we in this state of complacency? Is it because, we're good at what we do? We know what we're doing when we get out there on incidents, but the problem is that we've gotten so good at it that we're forgetting a lot of the things that we should be concentrating on. So it really gets down to a point of that we're just lucky. In 2018, there were 6,734,416 police reported crashes. Now think about the number of crashes that don't get reported. Okay, so it's much higher than that. Okay, and this number kind of scares you. When you think about 33,654 fatality crashes. Of that, 36,560 deaths. That's 100 deaths a day in traffic crashes. It's a scary number. We get all upset. We had the shooting out in Las Vegas. We had the shooting down in Orlando at the nightclub down there. Roughly 50 people at each one of them were killed. We'd have to have those two incidents just about every day just to equal the number of people that we're killing out on the highway, and we just take it that, that's facts of life. People die out on the highways, and it really can't be that way. Every one of those crashes takes the responders to get out there on it. Okay, 365 days a year, we're responding out there to all of these different crashes, and whether it's property damage, personal injury, or fatal. AAA says that they assisted 32 million motorists in a year. Okay, that's a lot of people, but their numbers are slightly skewed because, they go and give you a hot shot in your driveway. That ends up being one of those 32 million calls that they report. And then NFPA reported a total of 174,000 vehicle fires. That number has remained constant for a lot of years. They keep reporting roughly, and it changes a little bit, they round it off, but That's a lot of vehicle fires. And you start looking at all of these numbers that we have to go to as responders. You start thinking about how much of our time out there is really in harm's way. In 2018, Maryland had 474 fatal crashes, killing 501 people. That's, when you start talking about more than one a day, that's really something we have to concentrate on. In 2019, there were 44 struck by deaths. That means somebody out on the scene of something, whether it's a crash, it could be a house fire, anything. But if you're out on the scene of something and you get struck and killed, there were 44 of them. 18 of them come from law enforcement. That number is usually 10, on an average year. We had 9 fire and EMS. That's normally 6 in an average year. And the tow operators, their numbers are really, it's hard to get an accurate number on tow operators. Normally, at least according to what the tow associations say, is that normally there are 40 to 60 tow operators killed every year. Now, they had 14 reported, and I think that number is very low. One of those happened to be in Maryland. We got the D drivers, and we know what the D drivers are. And what do we do to prevent it? We outlaw things. Okay, now the latest thing is distracted driving, and that's one of our biggest problems, especially when you start combining things like the drunk and drug drivers or somebody that's drowsy and they're playing around with their phone, they're using the phone as a GPS, whatever. And to do any of that stuff, it's dangerous. So all of those things fall under that dangerous category. In 2017, this is the last time that they've actually compiled these stats, at least from what we could find, there were 34,247 fatal crashes with 37,133 fatalities. They were able to determine that 9%, 3,100 deaths actually came from, they were documented distracting driving cases. Okay, so how many aren't documented? How many of those, the other fatalities, and even down to personal injuries, even property damage, how many of those crashes, do we respond out on? And it's always, I saw them, they were talking on the phone, or they were doing this on the phone, they were texting. So, we have to really watch out for ourselves out there because of that. Now, here's something that, everybody talks about, the vests. One of the, I think everybody's pet is either you love the vest or you hate it. And at 60 miles an hour, a vehicle is traveling at roughly 88 feet per second. That is almost the distance between telephone poles. Telephone poles are roughly 100 feet apart. Reaction distance is 132 feet. That means, realizing something's going on, take your foot off the accelerator, put it on the brake. Just that, what we think is just a second to do. Well, you've traveled 132 feet. Total stopping distance is 359 feet. That's the length of a football field, including both end zones. Low beam headlights only illuminate 160 feet in front of the vehicle. And now you think about Scotch light, especially the good stuff that's on the back of most of the equipment now. That has to reflect ambient light from 1,000 feet, the good stuff, that diamond grade stuff that they talk about. Regular Scotch light has to reflect at 500 feet. And once again, it's ambient light. It's the light that just happens to be there. That's why these garments are so important, Bright colored stuff, and you have the bright high visibility yellow and all that. The MUTCD, and it's backed up by OSHA and in Maryland, MOSH, that anybody that's working out on a right-of-way has to wear it, the way that they use that word, shall wear high visibility safety apparel. It's required. So, you can get all kinds of trouble for being out there and not having it on. Here's a neat picture. And if you take a look at that, you see the Scotch light reflecting. And you can barely see the guy that's standing there in the middle, This guy right here. And actually, only the person on the far left has the required reflective, high visibility garment on. Even though the other ones are working, none of them meet the requirements that first one does. Now here at 1,000 feet, the same kind of setup, the same group of people, and you start seeing certain things like the stop sign, the pink warning sign, okay, the advanced warning sign for the traffic incident. You start seeing a little bit of the Scotch light that some of the guys are wearing. Get a little closer, down to 500 feet. You're driving down the road. That's why it's a little blurry, because that's actually what you're seeing at night. 250 feet. Oh yeah, hey, got a stop sign coming up. Got a pink sign up here. There's, looks like two guys standing out that have some kind of reflective stuff on. At 10 feet, that's what you've got. So, how important is the high visibility stuff? Okay, the vest, okay, even the Scotch light stuff on turnout gear, it's better than nothing. But when you're out on a traffic incident, even with the turnout gear on, you're supposed to have that vest on, and you can see how important it is for somebody to have that on. The three different classes, yep, really, you're seeing more people going over to the class 3, the one with the sleeves, because it is that much more visible. For us, for example, everybody in MDOT now wears class 3 all the time. It used to just be in hours of darkness. You could get away with a class 2 up until it got dark. We've just gone away with everything, and the only thing that we're wearing now is class 3. And that's what we're recommending to everybody to do. We think that that's the way it's going to go. We think OSHA is going to end up getting involved with it and say, yep, this is what you have to wear now. Just another, couple more pictures of it to see the differences. You see most of the construction crews wearing the orange. You see the response personnel usually wearing the yellow. And then once in a while, you see people with the pants on. So, anything that color, that reflective, that bright, is going to save your life. Okay, fire department, well, you can get away with not wearing the vest as long as you are actually engaged in fighting a fire, or if you're dealing with a hazmat situation where the chemicals that you're dealing with may react with the vinyl. But the heat will, if you're actually engaged in firefighting, you can leave the vest off. Don't use it as a crutch. Don't go setting fire to cars so that you don't have to wear the vest. It ain't worth all that. Initial windshield size up. Make sure that the exact location of the incident, that's one thing that we're really forgetting a lot of. A lot of people are just, the exact location is, they're pulling up and just saying, oh, we've arrived, we're out with it, whatever, but they're not clarifying where it is. And it really has become a problem in some situations with other equipment. So often, especially out on divided highways and the interstates, we're sending a lot of equipment, extra engines, extra block vehicles, and all that. And some of them have had to do some goofy things. We'll show you some pictures in a little while of getting to that scene just because it wasn't clear where exactly it was. Turn the wheels away from the incident. If something does hit it, you don't want it rolling into you. Okay, you're supposed to have chocks on them. You're supposed to do all kinds of stuff, but once in a while, something bigger and heavier than that engine were to run into the back of it, the wheels were turned to the left, you'd end up seeing, the engine would end up coming right into the scene itself. So you got to try to avoid that. The TIMA, okay, the Traffic Incident Management Area. We've gotten away from referring to them as zones. We don't call them the temporary traffic control zones anymore, even though by MUTCD, it still falls under a temporary traffic control zone. But that's not what we call it. Okay, we call them areas. We have the advanced warning area, back where the advanced warning sign goes, or you might have a police car or some kind of other vehicle back there providing advanced warning to the people out on the road that something is coming up. The transition area, or what we commonly refer to as the taper, putting the cones out, merging traffic from one lane into from a second lane over into a through lane that we have to create just to get traffic through. We have the activity area, which actually includes the buffer space and your incident space. Incident space is the most dangerous portion of it because that's where all of the activity is. And then you have your termination area, okay, the end, where people can go back to using the lanes and driving as goofy as they were doing before they got up here to the incident. But just remember, in that taper, you don't want just to block, okay? That's why NFPA now requires at least 5 cones on every piece of fire apparatus so that you can actually put at least those 5 cones out. And the other ones, you can see, and we'll talk about distance in a little while because some people get a little confused on how far away the cones are supposed to be from each other. Safe, quick clearance. Like I said before, the sooner that the scene is cleared, the sooner that everybody gets to get out of there and go someplace safer. Okay, for the fire department, you're safer back at the fire station, or in most cases you are. So, when you do that, get out of there. That's the only time that you're going to be safe. While you're standing out there on the highway, even though you might think that the road's closed, that it's blocked down the road, you're still taking a chance by being out there. Secondary crashes have become a real focus for all of us because it turns out that, the secondary crashes are those that occur within the incident scene or within the queue or backup, and that includes traffic on the opposite side, okay, especially like on divided highways. That's why we tell everybody, show your forward-facing lights once you're out on it because it stops all that distraction on the other side that ends up causing a secondary crash. Remember to only take as many lanes as you need for as long as you need them. Don't just get out there and block up traffic and keep everything closed up until you're ready to leave. Okay, as you clear things, start opening the lanes back up and alleviate a lot of the backed up traffic. You want to reduce the secondary crashes because somebody else is going to have to respond on it. And you want to try to stop everybody from having to go out on these things as much as we do. For every minute traffic is affected, it takes 4 minutes to recover once it's open to full capacity. Okay, so once it gets back to the pre-incident traffic flow, it takes 4 minutes for every minute. Well, we don't close things for a minute. Okay, we close things for 30 minutes, an hour. Okay? That's why you hear the noon report on the traffic reports on the radio coming out saying, oh, well, we're still feeling the effects of the crash from this morning's rush hour because it takes that long before things really get back to normal. For every minute a lane of traffic is closed, the risk of a secondary crash increases 2.8%. Now, when you first hear that, it's like, oh, 2.8, that's not too bad. Think about that. For every minute. For 10 minutes, you've increased the chance of a secondary crash by 28%. If you keep a lane closed for more than 30 minutes, you're just about guaranteeing that you're going to have a secondary crash. So that's why we want to, get out of there as soon as possible. Safe positioning. We're going to show you some pictures here, and not trying to embarrass anybody. We're just, some pictures that we were able to capture that we want to show, and these are real situations. These aren't staged. These are things that we actually captured off of our cameras to show, what, the way people could be doing things. And like I said, this is real. Believe it or not, these things are actually happening out there. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? You got a car fire over on the right-hand side. Vehicle is completely off on the shoulder. State trooper got there very shortly after, blocked the shoulder and the transition lane there, the ramp lane. The fire engine came in to put the fire out. Okay, took 1 and 2. The first lane and second lane, that's fine. Okay, so you had +1, you had +2. Our truck got there and blocked, put up cones and blocked the lane, put the arrow board up. And for some reason, the hook and ladder shows up and takes 2 more lanes. Well, if you look at the position of that hook and ladder, it's like equal with where the vehicle fire was, and the fire's out. So, why were they even stopping by anyway? But they end up, going up there. And if you take a look very closely at that car, look how close that car came to the side of the hook and ladder as the guy's getting out of the jump seat. He just opened the door and he comes up there And, here they are sitting there blocking 2 additional lanes of traffic, which was totally uncalled for. There was no reason. Guys have to think about this. So another instant where you got a rescue, comes in as a rescue. Dump truck went over the guardrail and flipped over on its side. So full rescue box gets dispatched. Well, the truck comes down, does an angle block to the right. That's where the main contention on this is. Okay, at the angle of the equipment that's doing the block. Engine comes down behind them. They also take up a position blocking to the right. Okay. See the white tractor trailer coming down behind them. If you notice, you see around it, there's all this smoke. It's from the tires. He was actually in the slow lane coming southbound. If you notice, it's a curve. So while he's coming down around the curve, doing around the speed limit. He thinks that the engine and the truck are pointing him to the right, and he starts going off on the shoulder. If you look closely up between the X of the exit and the 1 for 16, you see his skid marks where he had to lock them up. Luckily, he had some distance around him because, the car saw something going on and started slowing down for him. And, he had no idea what was going on. He didn't see any lane lines back as far as he, where he first saw the engine and truck. So they block like that, giving a bad impression. And then when our guys finally show up, they block for him, put up the arrow boards, and they say, hey, how about if we just take one lane? Do you need both lanes? Well, the captain on the truck said, yeah, we need it because MDE's on their way. Okay, MDE's going to have to probably block it. There's MDE right there in the center of the picture. Where are they? On the shoulder. Okay, the medic unit, when they first got there, turns out to be property damage only. I mean, you saw in the previous picture, the medic unit's up on the shoulder. They had pulled off on the shoulder too. The driver was actually sitting on the guardrail, kind of bawling his eyes out, but now he probably just lost his job for messing up the boss's truck. And he's just sitting there, no injuries at all, and that's when they canceled the rescue assignment and all. So, if you look at the distance from the actual instant scene to where they blocked, it was perfect. They had everything going right there except for the angle of the equipment. The apparatus should have been pointing the other direction to make sure that the vehicles coming down behind them knew which way to go. So MDE's off on the shoulder, and then they said, okay, well, gee, why do we still need this extra lane block? And they were still talking about it, trying to get people to move to open up an additional lane because now we've got traffic stacked up all the way back 3 exits. And they said, oh, well, the tow trucks are going to need it. I watched the entire thing on the camera. The tow trucks came up, actually 2 rotators, 2 of the real big heavy-duty trucks, and they stayed on the shoulder. They pulled the flatbed, the low boy, up in lane 3, in the slow lane. They lifted that dump truck up off of the, from the hill there, over the guardrail, onto the low boy, and they only needed the 1 lane. Because they did everything from the shoulder. So think about that, because the more you do, like we said, and this was closed for a couple of hours this way, and it didn't need to be. Should have had 2 lanes open without any issues. Another one, okay, our guy pulls up, and this is the way he saw the engine blocking. They had 2 lanes blocked. Everything was over on the right shoulder where the dump truck is. The car that was involved with the crash with the dump truck was also in front. In front of the car was the medic unit. So they only needed 1 lane here, but for whatever reason, they got there and took 2, and they did the wrong block. If something came up there and ran into the side of this engine, would have gone right into the instant scene itself. That's what we have to do, and that's why everybody is told to block a certain way. Block it from, so that nobody can get into the actual scene itself. There's another one. Okay, our guys pull up on the scene. The first engine out with it is already on the scene. It's a crash involving 3 vehicles, one of which was battery powered, so a Prius. So all kinds of extra precautions. Well, you see the space in front of our vehicles where the truck should have come up and pulled in there. Our guys told him to pull in there. No, he did a left angle, okay, and shouldn't have done. And look at the traffic coming up behind them, coming around a curve, over a hill crest, and they're sitting there with the wrong angle on it, behind where our guys already have the taper and the arrow boards. Where they parked, they ended up blocking 2 arrow boards, which are there for their safety. Okay, and of course, then when the lieutenant, who was the commander at the time of the incident, told them to reposition, they refused. So started a little storm, but took care of it anyway. And then you get a vehicle fire. Now you see, God, don't we wish that we all had these kind of shoulders that wide on all of our roads? A car fire, they go get the fire out. For whatever reason, they ended up pulling that way. I'm guessing they probably came up the ramp that's just behind us and just kind of pulled across. But they blocked 3 lanes with the engine. The wheels are turned into the scene. There are no chocks. It's just sitting there, and it's downhill. And they're right now, the fire's out. They're rolling up the hose, and there's another engine parked the exact same way on the other side of this. And I'm kind of like, I was watching it, and I was kind of like, why are you guys even doing that? It doesn't make sense to do it that way. And the whole time, they're blocking 3 or 4 lanes of traffic. So, these kind of things, that's why I bring these pictures up to you. Take a look at them. Think about what you're doing when you're getting out there on these scenes. No reason why that engine has to sit there blocking traffic just to roll the hose up. It doesn't take that much. And then going in the opposing direction, contraflow. That has, for some reason, just recently has really become an issue, or just that maybe I'm just noticing it more. But, that nice, pretty conspicuity striping on the back of the equipment doesn't do any good if the people can't see it. But this is, once again, is location. The truck was, naturally came in as a rescue, vehicle overturned. Turned out it wasn't a rescue. They ended up, the person had gotten out on their own. But why are they, why did they come down the wrong way? Well, because they didn't have a good location. Nobody had clarified exactly where this was and give them their best avenue for getting in there. But then, I had problems with the medic unit parking where it did, the second medic unit, the one next to the truck. Why they didn't pull up behind it or in front of it a little bit. It just, this is another one of those things. They did not stop traffic to do that. They came down into the opposing traffic. The engine had just gotten there. They hadn't even set up any of the cones or anything yet. Our guys pulled up just shortly after this picture got there. So it was just really bad situation when going opposite traffic on a divided highway. And one more about contraflow. Okay, engine and truck came down the ramp. This is a long ramp, by the way, at 70 in the Beltway. And they came down the wrong way the whole distance. Don't know where they turned around to come down the wrong way. Either way, it had to be about a mile down the road that they came in the wrong direction. No traffic stopped for this. They were going head on into the traffic. I was listening to the radio conversations about this, the ones primarily our channel and state police channels. I could not believe the comments that were being made by our guys. Even our operator noticed it and warned our guys that they were coming down the wrong way. If it hadn't been for our guys finally being able to cut off traffic, God knows what would happen. It was just a really bad situation there. I want to show this video to you. Most of you have seen it. This is part of what the 4-hour program has shown. This is why the 45-degree angle is so important. If you notice, it's an 80,000-pound tractor trailer, 50,000-pound engine. A 30,000-pound difference in weight, and the engine barely moves I mean, it moves about, sure, did it take impact? You bet it did. Here it is in slow motion again, but watch the front of that engine. Now, this tractor trailer hits it direct amidships, right about where the pump is. And it goes around, that angle stopped that 30,000-pound difference vehicle and pushed it off, deflected it enough that it didn't crush the firemen that were standing over against the wall there. If they'd have been straight or they'd have been angled the other way, you probably would have lost 4 firefighters. So when you block, you got parallel or angled. Parallel is usually what you see with disabled vehicles, traffic stops, and all that. The angled is what you want to do when you have to end up, especially blocking a lane. Okay, the lane plus one, that's the key. Okay, so you think that, well, by blocking the travel lane, if you've got 3 lanes out there and you block one of them, you're messing with, 33% of the traffic. Well, that's not a good number because, with people having to switch lanes and change lanes and slow down and all that, you're actually messing with 51% of the traffic. This does not include the move over law. If you put in, if this was actually in a state where people listen to the move over law, you're actually messing with about 100% of the traffic. It's actually having a direct effect on 100% of the vehicles that have to go past that scene. And that's dangerous for us. Because when people are going past those scenes, they're not watching the traffic around them. They're not watching you. They're looking at the crash. They want to see the people are nosy and they want to see the accident itself. So even on the shoulder, you actually have 17% of the traffic that's being affected. And that, once again, is not including the move over law. Okay, move over law, you're going to be up about 50% of the traffic again. Block the direction you want the traffic to go. Okay, you get an instant on the right side of the road, block to the left. The only time that you can vary from that is if you end up with a vehicle fire. When you get a vehicle fire, all bets are off. You have to get the engine up there where it can fight the fire. So you do an angle block, so that the pump operator can get, can see what's going on with the fire. They got the front discharge hose on that engine. That's great. But if you notice in the drawing, it shows the vehicle that the engine is only blocking the right lane and the shoulder. In the photograph, they've actually got both lanes blocked. And you get a 2-lane road like that, you get a barbecue like that, you want to block, the whole road down, shut it down. We actually have a video in a few minutes here that I'll show you that even emphasizes that more. Lane plus one. You want to protect not just where they are stopped, where the medic unit is and where they're working. You want to take and give them that extra room, take that extra lane so that they have some room to move around the vehicles, okay, to do the job. And by doing it, by blocking the traffic, giving them the room, they do it faster and you can get out of there a whole lot faster. Same thing on the right side, okay, you end up having the instant scene, you want to block it, make it safer, take an extra lane, and that's what you end up with. That's where the lane plus one comes in. I have to give Anne Arundel County a lot of credit because they are constantly on the radio talking about lane plus one. That's what, when they respond out and the block vehicle comes up, says, hey, I'm blocking, we've got lane plus one, go downstream, tell the medic unit to go up in front of the scene in order to get the people. Here's what lane plus one should look like. Nice, you got some good distance. Some people say, oh, it's too much. Just to clarify, this was a rescue when it first got dispatched. So when the engine got there, they actually blocked anticipating a squad showing up, but the squad ended up being canceled. But the one thing that you really have to worry about with this is where the cones are, because as soon as they get around that last cone there, right directly in front of the engine, those people are going to want to come back over into this lane and get their lane back. And then that's why you should be carrying extra cones. That's why if the engine had 5 cones and the police car had 5 cones and the medic unit had 5 cones, you'd be able to control that scene a whole lot better and make it that much safer. If you're going to block, okay, if you're going to take a lane, make sure you take the whole lane. Don't take part of it. Okay, put the corner of that bumper right there by the line, because if you leave them 2 feet, they're going to want to use it, just the way people are. I mean, we can't change that mindset too easily. We've tried, but now blocking to the right. See in the upper picture there, the engine has the right lane block, has an angle to the right. You see all the footprints. The crash scene that they're on is up here on the shoulder, just in front of where they are. But somebody came up over that hill crest around that curve behind them, saw the block on that engine, and they said, oh, they must want us to go around to the right. And they come up there and they go around them to the right, and you see the tire tracks. I don't know how close they got to the scene where everybody was working, but it's a scary thought just to think that somebody actually came over into the snow and ice and everything. And I'd be just as scared even if it was dry road. Bottom picture's a good block, good angle, good, use of cones and everything. That's the way it should be done. Okay, blocking for the medic. Okay, the medic unit should actually have a slight angle to it, and just a little angle to the left. That way, if somebody hits that back corner, they get deflected out away from those back doors where all of the action is. 2 police cars doing a really good block. I'd love to know who they are, because they did a really good job of that. I go around. This is from the 4-hour program, and we showed this to the police academies. It's a good way of being able to block if you don't have an engine there to do it for you. Okay. I don't know why the truck ended up stopping there, but that's where they stopped. The scene is over to the left-hand side, and everybody's running back and forth to the truck and all that. Really bad situation here. But you see, everybody's going to go get on the truck to leave and get out of there. They're running back and forth in front of traffic, and the truck goes to leave. That driver on that tandem's really good. Medic unit gets out. Now they go to leave, but they forget Billy. Billy says, oh, wait a minute, I forgot something. Wait a minute. Oh, and they go to pull off, and then they remember, oh, here comes Billy. Billy has to catch up to him. So always make sure that you have your people on board before you go to leave. Okay, some more safe positioning. Okay, here's a ramp. Everything was in pretty good shape. Okay, we had one of our trucks with the arrow board. Everything was off on the right shoulder. Don't understand why the medic unit would have come and just pulled up alongside of the scene and stopped there. They could have gone up in front on the shoulder and been out of the way also, and then you could block that, further up away from where all this traffic is coming off the ramp. The engine did not come down the ramp in its response. It ended up coming from the through lanes and ended up just pulling over there and blocking. One, he ended up blocking the arrow board so people didn't see. And remember, when you see our trucks out there, don't block the arrow board. Make sure that the arrow board and the people can see that. They see that a whole lot more than they do that fire engine. But then, all of a sudden, I don't know whether it was the paramedic supervisor or battalion chief, or I hope it wasn't the safety guys. But they end up pulling up there, and they're blocking it. Here's the cement truck, the same cement truck you see in the right-hand corner of the picture, the top picture. And he's trying to squeeze out there. Our truck, our one tow truck there with the arrow board on it, had pulled out into that slow lane to let the traffic off of that ramp. And for whatever reason, whoever was driving that sport ute ended up coming up there and just blocking the lane again. Think about what you're doing out there, folks. You got to really concentrate on it in order to do this right. Okay, island, well, pick one side or the other. Okay, if you end up having to block and work one side, block that side. You don't want to leave both lanes going through. You don't want to have the traffic splitting to go around you on both sides. Block off one side. The other side, where it says the split scene on the right side, pick a side. Pick whatever vehicle you can move easiest and get it over to that side, and just block for them going across the road. Get everybody on one side of the road as best you can. It's easier blocking things like that than to have to worry about middle of the road stuff. Just like the one picture a few slides back, it showed you the ambient, any kind of medic unit that you need to block for or use as a block vehicle. put an angle on it so that if somebody does come up there and hit it, that they get deflected away from those back doors. Okay, just, a lot of guys have been hurt because vehicle comes up there and hits it square, and then they have the doors blocked. And if you're in the process of loading or unloading somebody, it's just a bad position to be in. Move it or work it. You see this picture, and it brings up all kinds of nightmares. Okay, if the person is injured, that you can't move the vehicles, and you got to work it. That's a nightmare right there. An intersection, a divided road, probably talking about speeds above 40 miles an hour. If you can move the vehicles, when you first get there, just ask, are you okay? Don't say the word injured to them. Don't say, oh, are you injured? Because all of a sudden they say, oh, yeah, I am. Okay, you say, are you okay? Just say, okay, pull your vehicle over there. Believe it or not, that Cadillac will move. Front wheel drive and all that. Left tire is probably still okay. And I've seen vehicles in the worst kind of condition roll, 2-3 times, and you get in, start it, and drive it off to the side of the road. It's amazing what vehicles will do. So try to get them out of the road. Try to make it safe. For the law enforcement guys that are listening to this, make it easier so that when the medics get there to actually talk to the person and verify injuries and all, that they have a safe place to work. There's no way you can make this safe besides shutting it down in all 4 directions, and then you're going to take the chance on the secondary crashes. Always consider where you want to position. Okay, think about geometry. Okay, the road and curves, hill crests, intersections, anything like that. You want to worry about the weather, raining, anything that affects visibility. The bottom picture is a perfect case. Right about where that vehicle is now, that would be where you want your advanced warning to be. Okay, you want it before the curve in the top picture so that people actually have a chance. Those that actually care and will pay attention to warning signs or vehicles that are giving warning. That's where you want them so that the people actually have a little bit of time to react. Try to give size ups about every 15 minutes unless something happens closer to that. Naturally, you want to talk about things if it happens, talk about it right away. But a lot of things happen within those 15-minute intervals. If you think about 6:45 in the morning rush hour, and then right at 7, how much difference is the traffic on most of our roads? Big difference. So make sure everybody gets regular progress reports on about a 15-minute interval. Move over law, we've already talked a little bit about it, and we know what it is. If people actually listen to it, it would be great. But unfortunately, the people that we deal with, the people that we're out there to protect, they're not worried about us as much. So just be aware of it. We do have the move over law, and if it's going to work, it's going to work. But I haven't been holding my breath since they first put it in because I don't see people listening to it the way they should. The driver removal laws. Okay, in Maryland, we do have a law that says if it's a minor accident, the vehicles can be moved. Move them out of the lanes of travel. It's actually Maryland 20-103 in the transportation article. So the people are supposed to move them. The dispatchers, the call takers in the 911 centers and at the barracks are supposed to actually be asking them, well, where are the vehicles? And if they say they're still in traffic, because you've got insurance companies and attorneys and all saying, don't move the vehicles until the police get there and take pictures. That's not right. So, they're supposed to move them out of the way. If you get to an accident where the vehicles can be moved, tell the people to move them off to a safe place. Remember, you're making it safe not only for them, but especially for you and everybody else that has to come out there. Our guys, you see our guys out there all the time, on the roads that we patrol, mostly the interstates and the larger divided roads. But for the state roads, okay, and that means Maryland roads, interstate highways, and U.S. highways. If you get an incident that you need some extra traffic control with, if you need, some traffic incident management, call. ask if our guys are available. Most of you know the areas that our guys usually patrol, so, but ask if they're available. The most they can do is tell you no, they're not available. Okay, but on the other hand, if they are and they come up there to give you a hand, they can take over the traffic management for you and cut your folks loose to do other things that, fire department, law enforcement, whoever wants, needs to be able to do. Reflective stuff. We talked about this a little bit. The diamond grade stuff is fabulous. It works well. Remember that it is under MUTCD, is supposed to be red and yellow. Okay, also NFPA. Why does the truck down the bottom get away with blue and yellow? Not fire. It's not fire apparatus. Fire apparatus is required to have the yellow and red. Okay, it's supposed to be angled away because, just like these pictures emphasize, it kind of directs you away from the vehicle. If you take a look, these are the same pieces of equipment before and after having the conspicuity stripes put on. And you see that the stripes actually say, oh, go away from me, get away. And that's what it's supposed to project. Make sure that they don't get obscured. Make sure that you don't have any like hoses or anything hanging down to help block it. And try to avoid that. There's the standards, okay, 1901 and 1917, talking about the standards that are supposed to be met, and it specifically says yellow and red in a chevron pattern. So it also says doors are supposed to be done. A lot of people do not know this, and a lot of people aren't doing it. Frankly, if you're going to open the door, hopefully you don't need reflective stuff on there in order for it to be safe for you to get out. But it is there for a reason. And the little reflective stop signs don't work. Okay, one, there's no legal justification for them. When you open the door and there's a little reflective stop sign pasted to the inside of the door, that doesn't mean that the traffic coming up there has to stop. It's not a true stop sign. You're better off, if you're going to do it, if you're going to put reflective stuff on the inside of the door, do it like this so that it kind of matches the back. People coming up behind you, they see those stripes matching the stripes that are on the back of the equipment as well. The old Scotch light doesn't work. Okay, this is the older type Scotch light. Wrong color combination. This is gold and black. And it does not reflect the way it should. Now you take a look at this one. There's a 5-inch hose draped off the hose bed coming down across the traffic director. Traffic director only does good if people see it. There aren't a whole lot of real warning lights on the back of that engine. I'm kind of surprised, because the front of it has all kinds of extra stuff, but the back really just has a bare minimum of emergency lights. The guy driving the pickup truck said he never saw it. He did not see that engine sitting there. So, and it was rainy. The visibility wasn't real good. There was a trooper over just to the right of where the solar pickup truck is on the shoulder with its lights on. Up just ahead is one of our trucks, already had the arrow board up and everything ready to block for the engine. It's a single vehicle crash up in front of our truck a little ways, and our guy had room for the engine to pull up in front of him. And for some reason, they stopped there. I mean, one of the worst places to stop. Don't know why they did it, but it's one of those things you just really have to pay attention to. Police vehicles are not required at this point to have the conspicuity striping, but a lot of departments are taking it upon themselves to do it, which is a good thing. Lights. Okay, we've talked a lot about LED lights over the last several years. The LED lights are great. It used to be you can't put enough lights on a piece of equipment. Well, now we're finding out, yes, you can. You can put way too much. The LEDs are so bright, and because of variable patterns and everything, there have been several studies out. Matter of fact, we took part in one of them last year. The new study is out on recommendations on light patterns and the colors and everything. That picture right here, it's not a bad picture. It's not a washed out picture. You take a look over to the right, you see green grass, you see red vehicles on the parking lot and everything. That is the glare you get when you have yellow and red together. The yellow lights, they blind out, they wash out everything else. They're almost as bad as white. So try to avoid having yellow and red on together. Okay, a lot of the agencies are getting rid of yellow on the equipment under emergency conditions. You know, you can use the yellow going back to the station and all from a call, but try to avoid having the yellow one because it'll wash out the red lights on the back. And, you know, the lights draw people. We know that. People, you know, will end up driving right into a vehicle just because of the lights. You drive where you look, and that's a bad thing. Okay, that's why we get you to turn off all of the forward-facing lights on scenes, just to keep people from being distracted in the opposing direction, looking to the left to see what's going on, and then they end up hitting something to their left. Study that we did with Baltimore County Fire Department, we set up a scene, and the police, we set up a scene and had all the lights on the way we normally would on the left side. You see the washout. You can't see the arrow boards. You can't see the conspicuity stripes and all. You kill some of the extra lights. You kill off some of the lights that you don't need on that scene. And all of a sudden, the arrow boards kind of jump out. People can see it coming down the road. You see the reflective stripes on the cones better. It just directs people a little bit easier, a little bit better. They're not tracked into where all of the lights are. It also gives you a good demonstration as far as the vests and how good the reflectivity is on them. That's why, once again, once you have good traffic management in place, start killing off some of the lights that you don't need. All those lights on the front of fire engines doesn't do any good, on the scene of something. They're good for getting to the scene. But once you get to the scene, start turning some of them off. Okay, and final thing, to make sure you get your vest on, check the mirrors, look back, open the door just as much as necessary. Okay, and then get out, and then close the door. Don't leave the doors hanging open. Okay, that extra foot can be the difference between having a banged up piece of apparatus or car and somebody getting through the scene safely. Zero buffer right there at the corner. Don't get out of the engine or the police car or whatever and walk around that corner where you've got the traffic choked down. Okay, that's why I don't like traffic stops. When the police make traffic stops and put that left angle on the vehicle, you have to walk around that corner. Well, you don't have to. You can actually walk around back, go around the back of it and do a passenger side approach. Okay, but that's, stay away from that corner. Whatever position on that scene puts you the closest to the traffic, stay away from it. Okay, passenger side approaches have been really good. They've been shown to do a really good job, even for EMS. You can see the whole patient from the past. If you're dealing with a driver, you go over on the passenger side, you get to see your whole patient. You get to see, and talk to them. You don't have to squeeze in between the traffic and the door and look inside the door. And it's just a whole lot better doing it from the non-traffic side. This is what a scene should look like. Got the advanced warning sign. Naturally, you want more space, but we had the opportunity here to take a picture where we could show the arrow boards, the signs, the advanced warning sign, the cones, and all in perspective. So that's what a scene should look like, kind of spaced out. You see that the fire engine is angled properly, a really good angle job on that. Medic unit is in a safe place up in front of it. So, all in all, it was a really good shot to take. And once again, with the advanced warning, okay, take the hills, curves, any kind of bridges, intersections, anything that's going to be harmful to your safety. Make sure you consider that when you go to put the advanced warning out. The weather conditions too, okay? Wet, snow, fog, anything like that. Make sure that you always consider that and space out your advanced warning accordingly. Tones, 28 inches or higher is what the standard is, but luckily under 6I in the MUTCD, the part that deals with traffic incident management, there's a little clause in there that says, well, you use what you have available. That's why you see a lot of the police cars carrying the 1-footers. That's what they have available. But just remember one thing. Once the proper size gets there, they should be replacing the ones that don't meet that 28-inch requirement. So it might make extra work for some people. Collapsible cones they work well, they're acceptable. But just remember, when they get run over once, they're done. They're trash. Okay, so the other ones I have literally seen used, where they've gotten hit hundreds of times. Okay, I'm an EVOC instructor. Yeah, I see them get run over all the time. I see them get hit hundreds of times and still be able to be used. So really consider that before you go just buying the collapsibles thinking you're saving room. LED flares and regular flares, we all know how dangerous they are. If you use them, try to remember to pick up the wire stands. It's amazing how many cars you see with those wire stands stuck in their tires, broke down on the side of the road. The flares, the LED flares that we currently use, they're called pilots. They're sequential. This is what you get when you set them up under the cones. Looks like a landing strip. We're afraid of using them out on some highways because we think an airplane's going to land on it, but they do work well. They really do help out and really guides people everywhere they need to be. Distance and spacing. The skip lines out on the road, the lane division lines, they end up being roughly from beginning of one to beginning of the other, somewhere between 35 and 45 feet, depending on the road, depending on whether it's a county road, state road, highway, whatever, the speed limits and all. If you set up a cone at the beginning of each one of those skip lines, you'll end up with what you're striving to do, and that's 35 to 45 foot separation. Okay, if you take 15 steps, 15 paces, you get the same thing if you don't have lines out there that you can go by. But you take the cones and you make sure that you have them angled this way. You put 5 cones minimum to make a taper, like this one in the picture. Okay, you take, right about where the second one is. Okay, just about a step out. This one's about 2 steps out, puts it about mid-lane. Okay, 3 steps out, 4 steps out. That's what you want to try to do, is get them spaced out like that. There's a barbecue I was talking about earlier. This is why I said, hey, if you end up getting to a car and you think it's going to do this, block the whole road. Don't worry about it. Because, it's better to do that when you see it from the other side now. Those people don't stop for things on their own. They want to get past it. You see people here taking some real goofy chances. Now, of course, nobody really expects a plastic gas tank to go up, but they do. Luckily, it was gasoline, right? If it had been fuel oil, they'd still be there fighting it. So, median cable barriers. Okay, be careful with these. You're seeing them more and more. Okay, do not cut them. Okay, loosen the turnbuckles. Okay, just get something and turn that. It only takes a couple of turns on that to loosen it up enough to take all the tension off. These are tensioned out at 10,000 to 14,000 pounds. Okay, that is a lot of tension. You cut it, that cable splays out just like when you cut a piece of rope without taping the ends before you cut it. And if it splays out, it's just like a buzzsaw. It'll cut right through you. So, if you're not sure, if you have never been trained in it, go to the SHA shop nearest you if you have these in your area, and ask them to give you a quick class on what to do, how to take off the tension and all. It's going to save your life if you have them, and you're seeing them more and more. They're putting up more of these. They're done playing around and testing them and all. They really do work. They stop tractor trailers. They prevent tractor trailers from going across medians. The ones up on 795 have been a miracle up there, up on the northwest portion of Baltimore County. Always help clean up. Okay, even though the tow trucks are supposed to do it, just give them a hand if it means that everybody's going to get out of there a little bit faster. Concurrent responsibilities, interview patients, treat the patients, interview witnesses and the drivers and all that. everybody can be doing their job concurrently. You don't have to wait for one discipline to finish doing what they're doing before taking up with yours. The termination checklist, like we said, just like Billy in that one video I showed you, always make sure that your personnel are accounted for. That's the big thing. And then make sure the incident commander, and make sure that if you had notified the traffic management center, okay, for us, it's the statewide operations center in Maryland, make sure they know that the road is reopened again. And in summary, don't turn your back on traffic. See and be seen. Wear your high visibility clothing, wear the vest, make sure that it's clean, that it's working properly. And distance is your friend. You don't always have to pull up right on top of where the incident is. Give yourself a cushion, give yourself some space, because if your apparatus gets hit or your police car gets hit, it's going to come into you. And you want to have that distance there, some space that it can burn off any kind of speed before that. And that's it. Thank you all for your attention. I appreciate that. If there's any questions, we'll be opening it up for any kind of questions, or if you had any in the chat, we'll get to them.